Good afternoon and welcome to today's Pedestrian and Bicycle Information Center's webinar, Educating the Next Generation of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals, Tools and Resources for Instructors. Today we have Carl Sundstrom, who is a Program Specialist with PBIC, and Lauren Sandt, Associate Director of the PBIC. My name is Davian Anderson and I'm the PBIC Communications Coordinator. I'll be facilitating today's webinar. I'd first like to say hello to our speakers to make sure they are ready and everyone can hear them. Carl, are you there?
I sure am.
And Laura, do we have you as well?
I'm here.
Great. Attendees, if you can hear me and if you can hear Carl and Laura, click the hand in the box in the upper right-hand corner of your screen to raise your hands so we can be sure our audience can hear us. Okay, great. It looks like we have hands raised, so we'll go ahead and continue. Before we get started with today's webinar, I want to go over a few administrative details and the functionality of the webinar software. If for some reason your computer or web browser freezes during the webinar, please reload the website and log back into the program. You'll be able to rejoin the session. Please note that attendees will not be able to speak during the webinar. We do expect a large number of attendees on this call, so by muting your audio, it helps us to cut down on confusion and background noise. As an attendee, you have a control box in the upper right-hand corner of your screen that collapses and expands by clicking the double arrows. Though you won't be able to speak, you will have the ability to ask questions by entering them in the question box. If you have a problem during the webinar, you may enter it here. I'll monitor these questions and respond to you if I'm able. Questions pertaining to the presentation may be asked at any time in the question box, but will not be addressed until the end of the program, when we have built in about 20 minutes for a discussion period. Please feel free to ask those questions as we go along, and we'll get to them after the presentation. Also, when you exit the webinar, there's a very brief survey that will pop up. We would very much appreciate your feedback on our performance. The Pedestrian and Bicycle Information Center is a national clearinghouse of pedestrian and bicycle-related safety information and resources. We offer information and technical assistance to diverse audiences about health and safety, engineering, advocacy, education, enforcement, access, and mobility as it relates to pedestrians and bicyclists. The PBIC and today's webinar are both made possible with funding from the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration. Today's session will also be archived and available for download on our website at www.walkinginfo.org/webinars. PBIC also offers 4 different in-person training courses to provide technical assistance to professionals and community members in developing pedestrian safety action plans and improving conditions for walking. These courses can be found at walkinginfo.org/training. Now I'm going to turn the screen over to Carl and Laura for the feature presentation, Educating the Next Generation of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals, Tools and Resources for Instructors. While they are getting set up with their slide presentation, I have a few polling questions for the audience. Please let us know how many participants are viewing the webinar at your site. Okay, I'm going to give that question a few more seconds before I close it. Okay, thank you for your response to that question. I have 2 more questions. Please let us know what role you are in. If your role does not appear here, please do not answer this question. Okay, we're going to take responses for a few more seconds. Okay, I want to thank everyone that answered that question. And we have 1 remaining question. Have you ever provided PBIC education at the university level? And if this question does not apply to you, please do not respond. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that question out. And I want to thank everyone who did respond to those questions. We will take questions at the end. Carl and Laura, I'm going to go ahead and pass the presentation on to you, and you can take it from here.
Well, thank you all for joining us this afternoon to talk about educating the next generation of pedestrian and bicycle professionals. Davian mentioned that I'm Laura Sandt. I'm with PBIC, and Carl Sundstrom is with me as well. We've both been involved in developing a course for PBIC and also teaching it at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So we'll talk with you a little bit more about those experiences. So our purpose today is just to give you a little bit of history on pedestrian and bicycle education efforts in the past few years. We're focusing this lecture on education that's occurring at the university level for transportation programs, primarily engineers and planners. So we're not really focusing on education of the general public about pedestrian and bicycle safety or educating children at this time. But we're going to talk a little bit also about some of the available resources that PBIC has both collected and developed for instructors, and then talk a little bit at the end about some of the barriers that we've run into when trying to initiate and teach these courses, and then some of the solutions and lessons learned. So just a brief history to start out with. In the early 1990s, we're really not aware of many planning or engineering programs that were covering PED-BIKE topics, but the Intermodal Surface Transportation Equity Act, the ICE-T legislation that was passed in 1991, was a pretty major milestone in putting PED-BIKE issues in transportation on the radar. So in the late 90s, the Highway Safety Research Center, which hosts the PBIC, developed Federal Highway Administration's university course on bicycle and pedestrian design. That included a hard copy instructor workbook and a hard copy student workbook. And from that effort, we know of several courses that came online in the early 2000s. And in 2004, the Texas Transportation Institute began working on updating that curriculum. They developed 24 lessons, kind of module-type lessons, and added student exercises and instructor PowerPoints with slide notes. And they put those out to about 60 accredited programs that they had developed contact information for. And many of those universities picked up some of these materials and either developed full-blown PED-BIKE courses or integrated them into existing transportation courses. The focus of the FHWA course, both when it was developed by UNC and then furthered by TTI, is really largely based on engineering topics in pedestrian and bicycle design, but it does have a few modules that cover planning and policies and the other E's, education, enforcement, and encouragement. And all of these materials can still be found on PBIC's website. The longer link is down there, but there's also a shortcut if you just go to walkinginfo.org/university. So that's one of the founding courses that we're aware of. And in 2009, OTREC hosted a transportation conference in Portland. And they got together, the people that were there was about 43 of them, ranked the most important concepts that they felt should be included in an undergrad engineer Transportation 101 course. And so here's the ranking from the 2009 meeting, and also you can see the ranking from 2004 when they last met. So in 2004, PED-BIKE topics ranked 27th out of 31 topics that were considered. And in 2009, they went up to 17th out of 34. So you can see there's been some movement in interest from the engineering perspective on including more PED-BIKE topics in basic transportation curriculum. But I think we still have a ways to go, and much more information is needed for more detailed concepts covering PED-BIKE issues. And further, at that same conference in 2009, Jennifer Dill with Portland State presented the results of a survey that they did conducting interviews or surveys with 86 university transportation educators. And what they found was that a little over half included PED-BIKE topics in their programs. This was a survey of both engineering and planning professionals. And of those that were including them, most of them were really only including them in 1 or 2 hours, maybe a lecture for an undergrad course. And there were very few full-blown master's level courses that covered the topics over the course of a semester. However, there were about 43% of the respondents who said that they were interested in receiving course materials that might help them integrate PED-BIKE topics into their courses. So this really led us to start thinking about how the PBIC could help support instructors and make sure that they're aware of both the course that FHWA put out and some of the other materials that might be needed. So in the past few years, we've really geared up our efforts to promote the teaching of PBIC planning and engineering concepts in transportation programs, and we've been working in partnership with a number of other universities, including UC Berkeley and Portland State, who both have fantastic PBIC programs. So we started back in Seattle in a workshop at Pro Walk, Pro Bike conference, and really kind of got the ball rolling discussing the findings of the Portland survey and gathering ideas for what might be done to promote pedestrian and bicycle courses. Then in 2009, we were able to get funding from UNC to develop and teach a course focused a little bit more on planning, and Carl's going to talk more about that in a few minutes. And we put that out. And ever since then, we've been working with other universities as well as ITE. They have an education subcommittee on curriculum that's been drafting core competencies for engineers. So we've been working with that group to integrate PBIC topics into all components of the Transportation 101 course, as well as developing specific core competencies for the PBIC topic as a standalone item. We've also been working with Berkeley and Portland State in a couple of joint sessions we had at TRB in 2010, and also in Chattanooga at the Pro Walk Pro Bike just a couple months ago, where we've been just continuing the discussion, identifying barriers and challenges and some of the solutions that we're aware of, and trying to help promote others to teach the course. So all that's been going on, and right now we're currently working on trying to develop a joint subcommittee with the pedestrian and the bicycle committees at TRB, and trying to just formalize that effort a little bit more between universities and TRB. So what we know now through all these efforts and talking with all these people across the country is that there's actually many courses being taught, both pedestrian and bicycle specific courses, as well as other transportation programs that are integrating PBIC lectures into their general transportation courses. So we've started a running list on our site, and many of the professors have also offered up their syllabus, and so where we've gotten permission to post that, we have. And if you are teaching a course and you'd like to be added to the list, feel free to email me. And so we've also been gathering a list of the people who have requested our courses, and we have a pretty large running list. So these are all people who are considering including more PBIC topics into their ongoing curriculum. So that all leads us to a really exciting direction, I think. And PBIC's role in this is really to just continue facilitating the discussion and the sharing and hosting these types of contacts and course materials, because it's really important for people to be able to draw from things that are already existing. And we're also there to serve as a resource for instructors. We're happy to share our PBIC course materials, which we're in the process of updating. And we've also heard that professors are interested in seeing example assignments. So we're working on developing an assignment bank so that instructors can pull from assignments and adapt them into their own curriculum. But just to give a little bit more support for somebody who may not have this type of material already developed. And then finally, since you did see that long list of core concepts that go into a transportation program, there's always competing interests and other topics that need to be covered. So we're also working on condensing a couple of lectures that could be used for engineering programs that are more strapped for time, and give them a little bit of way to pull in PBIC components where possible. So the site that we have is walkinginfo.org/university, and that's where you can find the PBIC materials that Carl's about to talk about, as well as that list of contacts and the FHWA course book that's also been a running component of the university level education.
Okay, thanks Laura for that introduction here. I'm going to talk specifically about the PBIC course that we developed. This course was developed back in 2008, and we first taught it in 2009 here at UNC. We provided all the materials from this course on the website at the walkinginfo.org/university. And the idea of it is to make it as easy as possible for any instructors or anybody who wants to include PedBike into their curriculum. And that could be either as the full course or taking these materials and adapting them to be included in a shorter course or just a few lectures into an existing course. And so the materials that we have available, they include the syllabus with a detailed reading list, all of the presentation materials in PowerPoint with detailed speaker notes, so that oftentimes you'll see a lecture and it's just a photo or a map, and you can't figure out what you're supposed to talk about on that slide. So we try to make it as helpful as possible for the instructors. We also have assignments and labs. These include grading keys to facilitate the teaching if you're lucky enough to have a TA or some other help to help grade the materials. And then we just have some other overview materials about this course. So we found that given these materials, anybody can teach this course hopefully in about 15 hours a week, which we think is a pretty manageable time commitment, and that includes teaching the course itself. I should mention, in this case, it's a 3-credit-hour course. Also preparing for the lectures, reading through the notes, grading, and all the other management and coordination that goes into the course. And I'll show some more specific details on the course in a second, but I do want to mention right off the bat that all the materials that we do provide are in Microsoft Office and open to anybody who requests them, and so that they can be changed and formatted to work with whatever format that you have at your university. So the PBIC course was designed sort of to go along with the FHWA course, but more focused on students in city and regional planning. However, even though it was focused on planning, we did want it to have a big interdisciplinary component to it. So it is beneficial to students in a wider range of disciplines like engineering and public health. So the course itself, we wanted students to experience and understand the needs and abilities of pedestrians and bicyclists, and really understand these issues and challenges that are faced in specifically to ped and bike planning. We wanted the course to be as state of the practice as possible, so it's going to be continuously updated as we're able. And of course, we wanted the course to also be something that could be applied immediately. So we want students who take this course to be able to apply this knowledge to real-world situations, and once they graduate, be ready to jump right on in. And as I mentioned, it is a 3-hour course, but it can be adapted to meet the needs of the different students that you may have or different time commitments. So the first thing we did with the course development was to develop some of these core competencies that we felt these are the most important items that need to be taught in this semester-long course. I'll talk about those in just a minute, but we also looked at some of the existing courses that Laura mentioned in the background. The biggest 3 that we looked at, of course, was the FHWA course. We looked at the training courses that we already offer here at PBIC, and we drew on them quite a bit, especially sort of a lot on the design and the planning side. And then Bob Schneider's course from 2008 at Berkeley was a very big help in developing this. So, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel at all. We wanted to draw upon the materials that are already available. We definitely looked at Portland State and Washington's syllabus and reading list and made sure that everything was being included in this course. So the course itself, we include a very detailed reading list, and this is they try to be as current as possible with any big landmark studies, journal articles, and any other practitioner-related guidance that really any pedestrian and bicycle planner should be aware of. So this is actually, this reading list would be useful not only to students but to anybody who's in the ped bike field to scan through and check out. And then we have lectures for every class and lecture slides, and they have really wide range of issues that the practitioners will face. And then, of course, we also have academic and research-related issues. And part of being here at the Highway Safety Research Center, we were able to draw upon a lot of research methods and ideas and include that in the course as well. We also try to build in time into all the classes to make it more of an active class with discussion, talking about current events and readings that they may have seen or been assigned. We also included a lot of labs where they went out into the field and actually looked at real-world conditions and brought in guest speakers and panels to really talk to people who are out there in the field and understand the challenges that they face. And so we're lucky here. We have a lot of really great professionals in the area, and also we often have visitors coming through the PBIC that we're able to guest lecture. So we were able to bring them into the course and hopefully give the students a better idea of the issues that they will face once they graduate. And then we also have a lot of other detailed assignments that we have the students complete that really tie together all the readings and the skills that are required. So here, these are a lot of the core competencies that we built the course around. So this is what we started with, and then we developed the schedule and put the lectures together based on this. They cover, of course, a lot of the traditional planning issues like land use and master plans. But we also try to pull in issues of health in the built environment. We brought in some of the design issues, even some of the international approaches that are being done, and we can learn a lot from here. And then from our work on the research side, we brought in some of the safety and data analysis, which we hope proves to be useful as well. So what we did was we came up with these core competencies. We also made sure that all the 5 E's of engineering, enforcement, evaluation, education, encouragement are also covered so that the students get exposure to the full range of issues. And then after developing this list, we also went back and we checked with all the syllabi that we had from the other courses and any other slides we had and make sure we really had all our bases covered in this course. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the course projects that we had from the last semester. One of them was we had them go out in the field and examine the built environment. They had to select a few areas just to really gain a better understanding of the relationships between all the different road users and the facilities and the land use, and really see what's actually out there on the ground and some of the challenges that are faced there. We felt like data collection was a really key component, and we wanted to make sure that students had experience with that. So we had them go out and assess the functionality of a few different intersections here at downtown Chapel Hill, and then draw some conclusions and recommendations and about some of their observations and provide some recommendations for safety, access, and mobility improvements. Another project was to actually look at bike and ped plans and evaluate them, see what's actually in there, become a little bit more familiar with what these plans provide, what sort of resource they are, what are the elements that make it a good plan, or and then provide some more recommendations on how that plan can be improved. And then we had them do an individual research assignment on a topic of their choosing. But these were the assignments that we had for the class that we taught 2 years ago. And since then, we've developed some more assignments, and they're also available on the website. And and they also will include a grading key. So we're going to try to grow this assignment bank and hopefully have assignments for for-planning students and also ones that could cross over into the other disciplines. Another assignment that we had them do, and this was probably one of the assignments that we got the most positive feedback from, and this was a wheelchair lab where we include this lab right after the pedestrian design lecture, and so it's one thing to be sitting in the classroom and listening and understanding. Okay, here are the issues with driveways and intersections and cross-slope and connectivity. But it's a whole other thing to go out and experience. And one of the best ways to do that is to actually get in a wheelchair. So we borrowed some wheelchairs from the University Hospital here and had the students go out. We gave them a good safety briefing first and made sure they always had a spotter. We didn't want any problems out there in the field, but it was really successful. I think it was very eye-opening for the students, and any problems that are out there that they may not notice, being young, fit college students, were really magnified during this lab. And you can actually see, it's funny, in the middle picture where they put up a detour sign right in the middle of the sidewalk for motor vehicles, right in the middle of the lab, and the wheelchair couldn't even cross over. So we didn't even have to go out there and put up obstacles. Unfortunately, they were already there to begin with. So so that was a really good lab, and that's something this is something we'd highly recommend for including in any class. So I'm just going to, here's just a few screenshots, I thought, just to give you a better idea of the materials that we provide. This one here, this is just the first part of the first page of the syllabus. As I mentioned, we have it formatted. It looks pretty good, but it's also in Word so that you can change it and have it meet whatever design that you guys use for your other courses. We also have a full class schedule, and that includes all the assignments and the grading keys and everything else. So again, this can be moved around. We've actually moved it around for the class since we're teaching it again this upcoming semester, but it's available for use. And then here's an example of our reading list, and this was it's a very comprehensive reading list. It's really robust, and I think it was overwhelming, possibly when you first look at it. And we tried to help that a little bit by sort of organizing the readings by showing them, here are the required readings. This, we think, provide a good example of what they should know. Then here's some other optional readings that we don't really expect the students to read now, but they may want to go back at some later point and look into them in a little bit more detail, maybe even after they've graduated and they're actually out there in the field working. And then wherever it's relevant, we have resources for that particular one. So in this case, it's pedestrian facility design. So of course, there's going to be a long list of resources that we'll include there. Oh yeah. And then this is funny. This slide confused me for a second. It's actually a screenshot of PowerPoint within our PowerPoint, so I thought something had happened, and even though I'm the one that put it in. But anyway, what I wanted to show here was that this is the example of the PowerPoint that can be used, and of course you can change the background or do whatever you want. And then we have the slide summary and any references. So these are the lecture notes from the for the slide itself, and so that anybody teaching the course can get a feel for what we were trying to say with this slide.
PowerPoint within PowerPoint.
Yeah, PowerPoint within PowerPoint. It's I don't recommend it. It'll throw you off. So anyway, I've been mentioning here for a while, we developed this course in 2008, and we taught in 2009 to the students at UNC in the Department of City and Regional Planning. And the course itself was funded from a grant at UNC, and then we used PBIC funding to revise this course and make it available for anybody else who wants to use it. It was a really successful class. We had great feedback. We were over capacity. We were put into a small room for only 20 students, and we were able to squeeze in a few more students. So that was great. This time we requested a bigger room, and right now we have 29 students enrolled in the class.
So like Carl said, we felt like it went really well. We certainly learned a lot when we were teaching it. And in the very last class period we had with the students back in 2009, we spent an entire class asking them for feedback on the course, getting a sense of what worked and what didn't, going through the lectures and the assignments in some detail, and having kind of an open discussion as well as allowing them to provide written anonymous feedback. And so we took all of that into consideration in our next round, I would say. But here's some of the positive feedback. I'll start with the positive. As Carl mentioned, the wheelchair lab got almost unanimous support. A lot of students really loved that. They also really liked the speakers that we were able to bring in. We had Pete Lagerway, who at the time was with the City of Seattle. I think he's now with Tool Design. And Chuck Flink with Greenways Inc. Came in, and those types of practitioners, really seasoned planners and professionals, brought that extra real-world perspective to the course. So the students really enjoyed that. And I think the students really also, even though it was somewhat overwhelming at times, they enjoyed the reading list in that the topics were very current. We weren't tied down to any one textbook that can quickly get out of date. So they felt that it was current and relevant to what they might do as practitioners. On the downside, we did get some negative feedback. The students at UNC really seemed to want more design-focused assignments and lectures, and they also wanted to hear more about the connection between pedestrians and bicycles and transit. So that's something that we're working on beefing up for the next class a little bit. One of our assignments is going to be more transit access focused. And we're going to offer them a little bit more opportunity to get their hands dirty with the design. Also, with the reading list, while it was comprehensive, it was also overwhelming to some students. And they thought that it would be a good idea to prioritize the readings a little bit more to give them a better sense of the importance. And so that's another thing that we're working on, is prioritizing the readings and highlighting specific sections for them to focus on so that it's not overwhelming and they just ignore the readings altogether. And then they also wanted it to be offered more than once every 2 years. At DCRP, it's a 2-year program, so if they missed it that one spring when it's offered, then they really won't have another chance to get it before they graduate. So we understand this is an issue right now. We don't have the funding to offer it every year, but it is certainly a long-term goal for us.
You know, again, I think this shows that there was a real demand for this course and a lot of interest in it. So hopefully in the future it'll be ramped up.
Definitely. So some of the other updates we're working on, we're making updates to the PowerPoints and the speaker notes to reflect the new resource changes such as the MUTCD and the Highway Capacity Manual and any other relevant publications that have come about in the last 2 years. We're just trying to confirm that we have the most state-of-the-practice reading list available. We're also changing up some of our assignments and making them a little bit more client-focused, working with the City of Durham and the Town of Carborough's planning departments. And we think this arrangement will be good for the students in that they get a little bit more real-world experience, and their work and their efforts in brainstorming, all their creativity actually gets to go and benefit our localities as well. So we're really excited to be working with them and having a little bit more hands-on, less theoretical type of assignments. So overall, we've definitely learned a lot throughout the years of teaching and working from the FHWA course that we were involved in, and even TTI's update. That's that's a while back, but we've definitely learned that it helps to draw from existing courses, and if you have just a little bit of funding, if you can not have to reinvent the wheel, you can really take that funding further. And so that's part of our reason for offering up the materials that we've developed. They may not be perfect, but they may help push you a little bit further if you're considering what slides that you want to pull together. Another thing about tailoring lectures to your expertise, I don't think that there's a perfect curriculum that's right for every program, but each transportation program and university department has its own strengths that can certainly be built into the PBIC class. So if you have a really great design program, you can let that be your emphasis. We have a really strong tie between our planning department and our School of Public Health and our Active Living by Design Center that's here. So we've really been able to leverage all the health and physical activity pieces, as well as the safety elements that HSRC brings. As far as marketing the course, every year I'm afraid that no one's going to register for our course, so we go out and we try to spread the word and put up flyers and tell students about it and hype it up, and then every year we exceed our room capacity. So I think there's something to be said for marketing it. It's really good to have that student demand, and I think that'll help you sustain the course over time. And certainly having those engaging real-world projects is another draw to bring students into the course. So those are some of the lessons we've personally experienced, but we've also been talking with a lot of other universities and people at TRB and PBIC who've been interested in developing courses, and we've talked about some of the challenges to bringing them about and some of the solutions as well. So I thought I'd summarize just a few of those that we think might be particularly helpful. The first issue is recruitment. That hasn't been an issue for us, but I've talked to a lot of people in smaller programs or more rural university settings that just don't see that there would be a lot of students interested in PBIC concepts. And what we say is, get a feel from your students. Ask them if they're finishing up a design course or a transit course. Ask them about their interest in PBIC issues and recruit them. And this is actually a flyer from David Levenger, who taught at University of Washington. And he recruited students and got 15 students from 15 separate departments. So that's another way. If you don't think that your department alone could sustain a course, you could bring in students from other departments and have a really interesting multidisciplinary course. Another option, if you don't have a lot of student demand or students available to take the course, is to offer it periodically, just once every 2 or 3 years instead of every year, or to integrate specific components into other existing courses. And as far as the issue of instructor expertise, we've heard a lot of people say, well, I really don't feel like I have the right background to teach this, or I really do, but I'm not available. I just have too many other courses to teach, too big a workload. One of the solutions that I know Berkeley has used is to allow PhD students to teach the course. And Bob Schneider started it, turned it over to Rebecca Sanders, and I think they've have a really fabulous course led by PhD students. And that's one way to get around the issue of not having a faculty member that's there. Another option that I think Berkeley and we have done is pulling in guest speakers for specific topics. I've talked to a lot of consultants who are very willing and able to lend their time to come in and speak on a specific topic, and they bring a lot of great on-the-ground experience that the students would enjoy. So don't hesitate to pull in consultants or other local planners, practitioners that might enrich the course, and even other professors from other departments. And then finally, just if you have limited availability, that's another way where having the opportunity to look at other courses and other syllabus that are out there might help you stretch your limited resources a little further. And then the last issue that we hear a lot about in the sessions that we've been involved with is There's just so much material to cover in one semester. It's hard to cover both PED and bike issues. It's hard to know what the core competencies are when there's not always a lot of research in some of these areas. And also balancing the breadth of what we want to cover with getting really into depth with some of the exciting issues. So as I mentioned before, it always helps to tailor it to the program to your own strengths. If you feel strong in a certain area, it probably behooves the students to get that experience as well from you. And then the next main, I think, useful advice I would give is just to be able to use the student assignments to extend their opportunities for learning. If you don't have time to teach a semester-long PED-BIC course, but you want to cover it in a lecture or two and have an assignment, that assignment can give students 4, 6, maybe even 10 or 15 hours of extra time to be considering the issues in their work for the course. So assignments and labs and out-of-classroom experiences are all a way to kind of extend teaching PED-BIC issues when you have limited class time. So that's pretty much it for our presentation, but hopefully we can all have our campuses one day look like this. This is UC Davis's campus, and we're all wanting to produce engineers and planners with a little bit more well-rounded perspective on all the transportation modes. So I thank you very much for your time, and I think we can open it up to questions now.
Thank you, Laura. Now we have some time for questions. Please enter your questions into the box on your screen. Again, if we run out of time for your question, we'll attempt to answer it and get back to you after the program. Okay, it looks like our first question asks, are there any plans to develop an online version of this course?
We have definitely talked about that in the past, and the answer for this year is no. If we miraculously get funding from UNC with all the budget cuts going on, that's definitely something that we would be seeking to do. Anything to add, Carl?
No, I agree. You know, yeah, it's been in the discussion for a long time, and I think it would be really helpful, especially for places where, you know, they may have limited resources and time from instructors and expertise. So it's on the radar, and we hope to provide that and offer that sometime.
Okay, thank you. We'll move into our next question. Carl and Laura, can you recommend any online resources for, I guess, PED-BIC safety videos to integrate into course materials?
Well, we actually run a video library as part of PBIC. The website, if I can remember it offhand, is walkinginfo.org/videos with an S. And we have at least 50 or 60 videos in there that you can do a search and find ones that are safety-oriented. One of the things we're doing in our class this year, since we're going to be at TRB for a week during the class time, is we're going to set up a film day for the students to watch some pedestrian and bicycle films while we're gone. And one series that we've been looking at is the E3 series, which is a PBS series on sustainable transportation. And I just happened to catch it on PBS one night, and it was really fantastic. And I think we're going to try to air one of those to the students. Another really good resource for great and very interesting videos is the Street Films collection. Do you know the website offhand? It's
streetfilms.org, I believe. Yeah, and they're certainly very entertaining and well produced, and you know, videos can really add that extra element that we really you can't get out of a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll move into the next question. I think you may have covered this in the presentation, but again, are the PBIC course materials that are provided online, are those free for everyone to use?
Yes, they are free for everyone to use. Our only request is that you acknowledge the source if you adapt anything.
And, you know, if you do adapt it, we would love to see what you've done to it and send it back to us. It would only help us improve the course materials for everyone. The only other comment on that is the materials, you do have to register with us to view them and to get a password. The reason for that is that, we do have the full grading keys, and we don't want those to be out there, for any sneaky students to check them out.
Okay, great. We have one question that is a little bit targeted, but I'll go ahead and put it out there. The question is, as an advocate to get into the professional field and go back to school for an additional degree, would it be better to look at studies from a civil engineer with an emphasis on transportation, or would it be better to look into studies as a planner?
I mean, coming from planning, I work with a lot of engineers, and Carl, coming from engineering, works with a lot of planners. So I can't say for which one might be better.
Yeah, it's a good question. I would be hesitant to recommend one over the other. A lot of it probably depends on the background of, the type of advocacy work that was being done and the previous education, where it may fit in better and maybe some of the future ambitions. Feel free to send us an email and we can talk about it more specifically, but, it would be hard to pick one over the other, I think, just without any more information.
So our answer is both.
Yes, dual degree.
Okay, thank you. We'll move into the next question. Can you discuss the advantages and disadvantages of having instructors integrate all modes into all transportation planning and engineering courses? So transportation students are exposed to complete streets concepts against having standalone modules or courses.
I think that there's definitely something to be said for integrating all the modes into one course. I think having that complete perspective gives you the chance to really see the trade-offs that you have to make with design and planning decisions. And certainly it allows you to see the big picture really comprehensively as opposed to kind of a little bit more siloed perspective. The benefit, I think, in teaching a PED-BIC only course is the amount of time that you have to really delve in depth into the issues that you wouldn't get if you were also talking about transit and motor vehicles and those types of roadway users in the same course.
Yeah. This is, we've been talking about this back and forth. What would be better, and obviously, ideally, you'd want both. With the dedicated course, where you get all that information, that's great. But you have to opt into that course, so it's really going to be the students that are just interested in that.
It's always an elective.
Yeah, it's always going to be elective. It's never going to be, it's never going to be a required course. So getting it into that, that intro course, I think is really critical. Even if it is only for a couple lectures and maybe just one assignment, just getting those basics down and where to find the other resources is definitely a key component.
Yeah.
And and that goes back to that one of the first slides that Laura showed about what's viewed as important for that Transpo 101 course and how PED-BIC issues really is climbing up. So hopefully it'll be easier to integrate these issues now too.
Okay, thank you. The next question asks, what was the list of universities offering the PBIC course or any PED-BIC content? Do you mind showing this list again?
The PBIC course?
Or any PED-BIC content. It must have been a list.
Go back to that one.
Yeah. Do we have the 10 on there? The 10 course?
No, I don't think so. So this is the list of people who have requested the PBIC course. We did a brief follow-up with some of them earlier this fall to see how many of them are actually teaching, and we didn't get a lot of follow-up response, but it sounds like there's a few that are in the works to be taught in the spring. And then if you go to the website walkinginfo.org/university_contacts. That's all of the people who have been teaching a PBIC course that we're aware of. And I don't know that they're all using like the PBIC course itself or if they've drawn from it and added it to other materials. But I know that we've got Portland State is on that list, Berkeley, and University of Washington. Jeff Olson up in New York has been teaching a course for a long time. I think his course might have predated the PBIC and even the FHWA materials. But we're finding out about more every day. Just this week we added a syllabus for Ryan Schneider, who's going to be teaching at UCLA. And we've got Ron Eck, I think, yeah, he's been teaching from the engineering department for a while now with West Virginia University. So all those people have offered themselves to be resources for others who are considering planning a course.
Okay, thank you. Carl and Laura, do you happen to have any contacts that may have adapted the same materials but put more of an engineering or design spin on it?
So we don't have any contacts yet on that. But I would say the design lectures that are already in this course are very good intro design lectures for anybody, whether you're a planner or engineer. I think you'd get a lot out of that. It shows the basic concepts, but it definitely goes into some of these key design issues. So they can be directly adapted to the engineering course. And this is another thing that Lauren mentioned, is that we do want to take that and more specifically tailor it to something that can just be dropped into a course in 1 or 2 lectures. But the way it is now, I think it's still really useful. And also there's the FHWA course, which also has even more detail on a lot of the engineering issues.
Yeah, the FHWA one is more geared towards engineering than the one that we developed for PBIC. And
and that one also has full PowerPoints available and readings and everything else.
That's true, and even course assignments.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, great. The next question asks, could you provide any suggestions on how to modify the course materials for undergraduates?
It might depend on what your undergrads, what background they have. We have at UNC an undergrad program where they can minor in city and regional planning. So a lot of our undergrads have already taken a few planning courses, and we just bring them right into our master's level course. We have 6 or 7 undergrad students enrolled for our spring course. The last time we taught it, we didn't have any undergrads. So this will be kind of a new experience for us to see how well they handle the master's level material. But I don't know on the engineering side if they're undergrad engineers.
I don't really see a big problem with teaching this to undergrads as well. I think the only challenge is that with undergrad, at least in civil engineering, is that you're competing with so many other courses that they may just not have the time to actually take the course. But there's probably not a problem with doing that. If it's a mixed class with undergrads and grad students, you may want to look at the assignments and possibly change the assignments a little bit for the undergrads. But I don't see any reason why that's going to be taught at an undergrad level either, at least after they've had a few of the basic classes.
The only thing you might want to do more is when we taught it the first year to master's students, the feedback we got was, you don't need to spend so much time telling us the benefits of walking and biking, and they wanted less of that. But I think if it's an undergrad audience that maybe doesn't have that background, you might want to spend more time on just the basics. Why is this important? What are the basic human needs that we're trying to meet? And maybe spend a little less time into all the design and planning details and policies that may be a little bit over their heads for the first time they take it.
Yeah, and you might want to dial back the reading list.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the course syllabus you have posted online designed for a course that meets twice a week or once a week?
It's designed for a course that meets twice a week. So we have, I think, a 17-week long semester here, and it was with adding a couple of days where we let students off for holidays or for a conference travel, and with adding in a couple of days where students give presentations in class. I think it was about 24 or 25 lectures.
Okay, great. We did have one of our attendees. It looks like, Laura, did you refer to the PBS series, the E2 series?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the E2.
Okay. We have one of the attendees actually sent that link, so I'm going to send that link out to the audience to reference that as well. And then we'll move into the next question. Referring back to the wheelchair lab, have you considered or looked at any other potential labs that expose students to other disabilities?
We actually, in our latest development of new assignments that we're going to be posting in our assignment bank, we have developed one more that is focusing on simulating the walking speed and gait of an older pedestrian. And this is something that we developed with the input of Janet Barlow with Design for the Blind, I think. Accessible Design for the Blind. So we got some input from her. Her suggestion was to have these types of accessibility labs in coordination with a mobility specialist. And there are certainly O&M specialists across the country that I think universities could tap into. We weren't able to make it work for our last course, but I think that would be really a great way to bring students in on some of the accessibility issues. So yeah, the older pedestrian, it basically shackles students. We call them stride limiters,
not shackles. But yeah, there's that lab, to reduce to reduce the distance that students can take a step and artificially age them by a good 60 years. And we also have another one that's a blindfolded lab, and we don't have the students cross the street blindfolded. We just have them stand on the corner and sort of listen to traffic and the signals and understand those issues as well.
And with these types of labs, we've certainly developed a lot of safety information up front, because the one thing that Janet Barlow said is you don't want to scare students into thinking that people in wheelchairs or people who have visual disabilities can't get around at all, because they certainly have a lot more experience in doing this than the students do. But it's just to give them some sense of what the issues are walking around. So there's definitely a lot of safety precautions and training that we do before we just put them out on the streets in wheelchairs.
Okay, great. The next question asks, are there any plans to combine planning and engineering classes into a single master's program?
For this class that we're teaching, we invited students at NC State to attend. I haven't checked the latest registry to see how many engineering students we're going to have, but we certainly invited engineering and public health students to be in the planning class. It's not cross-listed. I think that would be a step that might encourage engineering students to come, is to see it cross-listed with their curriculum. But that's a step for the future, I think.
Yeah, a challenge that we have here too is that it's at least a half-an-hour drive from NC State to UNC, which is where the engineering program is, and so it takes a lot of initiative for the students to come over here. So we did put the flyers out at the landscape architecture department and the engineering department, but as far as we know, we don't have any students this time around. But I'd be surprised if there weren't students interested in the program, in the class. And there would be a lot of benefit to having them in the class.
Yeah, the last time we taught it, there was one student with an engineering background, and he was really a valuable person to have when we talked through a lot of the design issues.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move into the next question. Are you finding that universities are reluctant to allow non-existent faculty to teach or lecture classes? As a professional in the field, how do you suggest going about approaching a university to create or teach such a class?
So I guess our course was kind of created out of student demand, and when the students clamor enough, the professors tend to want to respond and find ways to teach a course. So the faculty at DCRP came to us at Highway Safety and asked us to teach the course. So one outlet is if there are student activities, events, student listservs, if you're involved and engaged with the students, that may be one way to help get a course initiated. If you're coming purely as an advocate from outside the university setting, I think it might be a little bit more challenging. But certainly if you get to know the faculty and are there and willing to lend your expertise and involvement in developing a course, I think that might be a good way to start.
Sure, or even guest lecturing for a couple lectures in an existing course could be a good way to get into it.
We have heard a couple of people who have been also going the route of the community colleges, and more teaching-oriented colleges we've heard have been really open to this type of course, either specific to pedestrian and bicycling, or we've heard of a lot of like general transportation sustainability courses that are coming online. So that might be another thing to check into to see what the local community college is doing.
Okay. Considering the needs of pedestrians and bicyclists, do you see any advantages or disadvantages to combining the two topics into the one course?
The advantage is that you get to have all the students take both at the same time, whereas if you only offered a pedestrian course or a bicycle course separately, students may not have enough time in their curriculum to take both. So we would prefer to get them in one course and teach them both rather than have them maybe only take one of the two. That's the main trade-off that we have. Certainly, you could probably teach a whole bicycle design course, and there's enough nuance between the different roadway users that you could justify that. But again, we're trying to get this course into curriculums that don't teach any non-motorized transportation. So this is kind of our first step. Anything to add, Carl?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think a lot of the issues are the same on both sides as far as some of the health benefits and some of the other planning issues. Of course, the design and a lot of other issues are different, but for getting it into the system, I think we have a pretty good balance right now. And also, I guess I would be concerned about students only taking one rather than the other, not getting exposure to both modes, because they're will more than likely be working with both modes when they graduate.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question asks, are all the required and suggested readings as well as the lecture PowerPoints posted online for free student access or only accessible by instructors?
The syllabus is accessible to instructors and students. It's on the main page. But to get into, we don't actually provide instructors with the readings themselves because of copyright issues, but we provide the full reference so that they can look those up. I think what we're going to try to do is read through the syllabus and see which readings are already out there on the public domain, like federal highway readings that we could link to, and then for the journal articles, just link to that journal. So that way it's a little bit easier for instructors to round up all of the readings that they might want to use. So that's something that we're working on and going to hopefully get out there in the next few weeks.
Okay. What graduate programs do you know of that have a particularly strong emphasis or focus on active transportation?
Programs overall?
I guess I'd be hesitant to recommend any programs on this webinar, especially without knowing a little bit more background about what people are interested in. You can contact us offline, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we're a little bit biased here because I went through UNC, and that's the program that I know the best. You might, if you really want to answer that question, you might have to contact a number of other programs individually to find out more. I really couldn't tell you, with all the changes that happen so quickly with faculty, I really couldn't tell you which one right now is the most strong in terms of like active sustainable transportation. But certainly the list of people that are on our website might be a good start.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you think energy and climate and sustainability, does this play a role, and can it be integrated into the course as well?
That's a great question, and we have a lot of students here that come from the Environmental Studies program in undergrad. That's a really strong program at UNC. And I'm going to be curious to see how many of our undergrad students are environmental science students and how that may affect the course. I think that's a really good area that we can emphasize more in this type of course. And right now, the main time that we talk about environmental issues is when we go through the different benefits of walking and biking at the beginning part of the class. But I think certainly that there's room to add those environmental issues when we talk about the design components as well, some of the green design issues and even stormwater issues that arise from some of the bike facility design.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly in land use and we talk about like the lead neighborhood, and wherever we can, we try to pull it together.
So yeah, I think that's one area where if somebody had that aim, there could be a really strong tie-in with the existing ped bike materials, and could take it a little bit further than where it is now with linking it to environmental issues.
Okay. How many hours of instruction would you estimate to cover just bicycle in the engineering E of the 5 E's?
Just bicycle engineering, is that the question?
Yes.
Well, that's a tough question. You could really have almost a full course on that, or it could be as short as just one, maybe 3-hour intro.
We felt like we didn't give it enough time the last time we taught it with one lecture, so we expanded it a little bit to, I think, 2 full lectures this semester.
Yeah, and that's about all we could squeeze into this class. That could absolutely be, expanded into almost a 2-hour full semester long course.
Yeah, we really don't have too much time to get into anything other than the basics of bicycle parking and amenities like that. We kind of focus mostly on the different types of bicycle facilities available. But
yeah, a lot of it's just exposing the students to the terms and some of where to find the information, what the actual guides are, rather than go into detail about facilities and users and the real challenges.
But also this was a planning class as well, so we didn't feel like we should delve too far into the design issues with primarily planners, but I think an engineering course could go into a lot more depth.
Okay. The next question asks, are there any resources you would recommend that deal with the relationship between community health and the surrounding built environment?
Community health and the built environment. There actually are a few. I'm a student in the School of Public Health as well, and I just finished a course on physical activity epidemiology, and there was some really great literature coming out of the public health realm that deals with physical activity, walking and biking, and I'd be happy to post some links to articles. Maybe when we have the archive, it can be somewhere in the resources section by the archive, Davian.
Okay, we'll get that taken care of.
Okay. That's another thing that we're working on updating for our next syllabus is pulling in some of those public health articles that have come out. There's a pretty good summary of the built environment and how it relates to public health, particularly in the area of physical activity and obesity prevention.
Okay, we allowed about 30 minutes for a discussion period. Carl and Laura, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you so much for your time, and I really hope that you're able to get something out of this and further your own pedestrian and bicycle courses, either in a new standalone course or your existing transportation curriculum. And we're always trying to get feedback on the materials that we put out there, see who's using them, see how they're working, and see what other things the PBIC could help provide that might support teaching non-motorized transportation. So please do feel free to contact us with any further thoughts. Carl?
Yeah, I think Laura said it all, and we definitely appreciate your time and hope to hear from you with any success stories or any questions.
Okay, thank you again to our speakers, Carl and Laura, for joining us today. Once again, a recording and transcript of today's program will be available in about a week. We will also have a PDF copy of those slides. Finally, I want to remind you that a very brief survey will appear once the webinar has ended. We very much appreciate you taking the time out to complete it. Thanks to all of you for attending today's webinar on educating the next generation of pedestrian and bicycle professionals, tools and resources for instructors, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.